Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from the Lambrini Girls, Who Let the Dogs Out? I feel like there's been a lot of buzz and even some backlash to this band that feels a bit hard to gauge. A UK-based punk duo that used to have a few more members, 2 of them left. Their brazen energy, fiery lyrics, and open queerness has prompted a lot of hateful backlash from the transphobic imbecile demographic, even as it appears that neither of them are trans, which shows the relative intelligence and observational skills of some of the worst possible people online. But it places the Lambrini Girls in the politically minded riot girl tradition, which I always originally thought was more US based, but did have a moment in the early 90s in the UK with acts like Huggy Bear and Skin Teen, and thus it makes some sense in the nostalgia for that era that we might be seeing a forward-thinking descendant, and yeah, you know what, this is pretty good, I guess. The odd feeling with the Lambrini Girls is that they simultaneously feel like the natural follow-through to 90s Riot Girl with the clattering guitars, the thick fuzzed-out bass, and Phoebe Looney's brash hollering, borrowing some heavier, distorted tones from the grunge of that throwback era, maybe even some power pop sugar for the occasional hook, with stark feminist, queer, and anti-capitalist lines of attack on corporate culture, toxic masculinity, the police, gentrification, nepotism in the music industry, but it also feels like it's a half step removed from actually moving forward, that we've already heard so much of this done before and quite frankly done better. Now look, some of this is part of the point, highlighting how so much of what Riot Grrrl was screaming against 30 years ago still hasn't changed, with every step forward facing furious backlash, and sometimes all you need is that blast of catharsis, especially as 90s 2000s nostalgia is in full swing, and a whole lot of lessons have not been learned in the meantime. The album's titled Who Let the Dogs Out. It is a reference to the Baha Men, but also an acknowledgement that said dogs were horny dudes in the original dancehall sample. And I can't deny that the foundations here aren't pretty strong. The bitter sarcasm of corporate culture, the call out of multiple angles of men not holding each other accountable on big dick energy, tearing into police brutality on the opener Bad Apple. Filthy Rich Nepo Baby rips into those who would co-opt punk aesthetics when they have way more money, but it feels like I'm getting the broad strokes without a lot of follow-through, or hell, broad strokes that would have felt this broad decades ago. Now, part of that feels like the language and the framing doesn't honestly feel that contemporary or special. Yeah, Cuntology 101, the closer, it's the one that's probably gonna play for the kids, but it's also one of the few examples that feels somewhat modern. Nothing tastes as good as it feels. It's about eating disorders, titled after that infamous Kate Moss quote from decades ago, but Kate Moss herself stated that she regretted saying it in 2018, 7 years ago. If you want to make a case about heroin chic coming back into fashion for women in the mid-2020s and being pushed by certain modern influencers, more contemporary reference points might help. Probably would add some real teeth to the song. And I know No Homo is intended as ironic, given that it's about tentative lesbian affection, but the language being used just feels kind of dated and awkward in order to make that your hook. Again, the messaging is fine, but it implicitly creates the comparison to earlier bands who have done more with this sound and subject matter, or in the case of the interlude, Scarcity Is Fake, then chopping up a sampled 1978 speech from black activist and academic Kwame Ture that is quite frankly way more compelling and thoughtful than a lot of this album, especially when it's then pulled out of context and they don't do much with it. I also can't say I love the production. Seth Alexander is a name I usually like seeing behind the boards. He's worked with Mdu Mokhtar and Model Actress, but when your session drum work feels so underpowered and oddly mixed, a little buttery in spots, alongside the bass that can feel like more distortion than low-end muscle proper, you're left thinking they should have a bit more kinetic groove or a little bit more simmer. In short, the more I think about Who Let the Dogs Out, the less I feel there is to really think about. Where the politics and energy, they're broadly agreeable, but they're missing a lot of the refinement and follow-through, especially in comparison with where feminist and queer punk music is right now. I'm inclined to be forgiving for a good message, good attitude, especially for a pretty short debut. Just kind of temper your expectations against the hype. It is decent, but you've probably heard this done better before. That's all. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Yeah, I really wanted to like this a lot more, but the more lessons I gave it, the more I kind of soured on it. It doesn't hit as strongly as I would like. It doesn't really have that attitude, and when the production kind of is so-so at best, Yeah, didn't really click all the way through. Again, good messages, but it's the execution that ultimately matters in the end. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved in getting projects on my schedule going forward, or just supporting the channel, or yelling at me on my Discord, link to my Patreon is right over there. Don't feel obligated, tough times, I understand, but the option's available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.